Hey, this is John from All the Way to 11. In this video, we're going to be comparing three budget price 22 long rifle revolvers. Probably the three most common or least thought of when you think of budget price 22 long rifle single action revolvers. Without any further ado, we'll get right into it. We have the Heritage Rough Rider down here at the bottom, the Ruger Wrangler here in the middle, and the Chiappa 1873. Now, if you've already watched my video comparing the Heritage and the Chiappa, you'll already know my feelings on the Chiappa's overall fit and finish. It's kind of poor. There are a lot of things I don't like about it. I don't like the fact that it has an alloy cylinder. The alloy frame is fine. The alloy frame is common between all three of these. But the Wrangler and the Heritage both have steel cylinders, whereas the Chiappa has an alloy cylinder with inserts. And then I don't like the fact, especially because the more we shoot the Chiappa, the more wear, well, don't really need to close that, but the more wear we're starting to see on the cylinder stops, and over time that kind of worries me. It might start getting out of time. So that's something that, compared to both the Wrangler and the Heritage, the Chiappa is at a huge disadvantage in that it has this alloy cylinder. Just kind of, in general, the Chiappa is just kind of cheap feeling overall. Both the Wrangler and the Heritage have wider triggers. As you can see here, they both have relatively wide triggers compared to the very narrow, kind of hard to tell, I guess, but the very narrow trigger on the Chiappa. So another advantage to both the Heritage and the Wrangler over the Chiappa. In fact, there's only one thing that the Chiappa can kind of hold over the other two, which is its size. It is closer in size to the original Colt 1873. So if you're looking for something that mimics the overall proportions of the original Colt, the Chiappa is better in that regard, as both the Wrangler and the Heritage are narrower. Now, overall, they're very similar. So, I mean, in their width. Now, all three guns, the grip is about the same size. They're all a full-size grip generally, but the cylinder and all that is just slightly smaller on the Wrangler and the Heritage. So, but other than that, other than the size, really, I would kind of avoid the Chiappa unless you could get a really good deal on it. Like, I don't like the way the muzzle looks with the barrel insert and then this weird funny gap here. You don't have that on the Wrangler. You don't have that on the Heritage. In fact, the Heritage has the nicest muzzle crown on it of the three. In fact, I'd actually say the fit and finish on the Heritage is the nicest of the three. So, you know, the Chiappa pretty much, well, actually we might as well even just take the Chiappa off the table, because Chiappa, look, if you can find one cheap, I would say go ahead and buy it. But otherwise, don't buy it. I would just wait and buy a Heritage when it's on sale, maybe. Or I would maybe buy the Wrangler. But let's take a little closer look at these two, as I think if you're going to buy any budget 22 long rifle single action revolver, it'd be one of these. It would not probably be that. Now, the one thing that the Heritage has just overall is there is a much wider variety of finishes, barrel lengths, things like that you can get with the Heritage than with the Wrangler. The Wrangler is only available in 3 finishes right now, which are, let's see, burnt bronze, silver, and black. And they all have black cylinders. But, you know, if that's not something you're concerned about, then it doesn't really matter a whole lot. Now, as for trigger, all that, the Heritage operates as a traditional single action Colt does, where you put the hammer at half cock to load and unload. You know, you have the ejector rod, which I don't really care for that. It's kind of cheap, but overall, pretty decent. Now, the Wrangler operates under the Ruger single action loading system, where you flip the loading gate open, it disengages the hammer or the trigger, and you cannot cock the hammer. Don't try to cock the hammer. But then the cylinder spins freely. Works the same way with the ejector rod. So all that relatively the same. But here's something I like a lot better about the Wrangler, is it has the transfer bar safety here. And the Heritage does not have that. Now they both have frame mounted firing pins, but the Heritage doesn't have the transfer bar safety. And as you can see here, the Heritage has something the Wrangler doesn't have that I really don't care for at all, which is a manual safety. So I mean, it is nice to have manual safety, keeps your hammer from hitting the firing pin, but it is not something I really like on revolvers in general, but then especially a single action like this. So I'd much rather, if I were going to have any sort of safety mechanism, have a transfer bar safety like this. And this is the same sort of safety system they use on their centerfire single actions. So I like that. It's nice. Unless you're holding the trigger, that transfer bar will drop. So the hammer cannot or should not be able to interact with the firing pin. So, I mean, never rely on a safety, but still, I like that sort of setup way better than a bar that flips in the way of the hammer. I just don't care for that. So, and there is one other major point that I do like better about the Wrangler than the Heritage, which is, let me pull this off, maybe, or maybe I need to unscrew it a little more. There we go. Which is the mainspring here. I'll show you. Open up the Ruger really quickly. Now, as you can see, the Ruger uses a setup that is very similar to their centerfire single actions, whereas the Heritage is using your more traditional leaf spring setup here. And I just really like this setup. I think this gives a much nicer trigger, and I like the way the hammer feels when you cock it better actually too. It's a much smoother action both ways. Not that the Heritage feels gritty, but it's just not as smooth. Now granted, this is more traditional. You have clicks, so everything is more traditional. So that's nice if you want that, but just for shooting, I mean, this is a lot nicer. I just say that from my experience with my Vaquero. I really love this whole setup here. Now, is this as smooth as this? No. But is it smoother than your traditional? Yeah, by far. By far it is smoother, and I do like it much better. So that's kind of a lot of points there for the Wrangler. But I'm not going to take the Heritage off the table actually, because I still think the Heritage is a good buy, especially when you can find it with the Magnum cylinder, because you can't get the Wrangler with the Magnum cylinder, and especially if you want a different barrel length or a different finish or some other variety that you cannot get with the Wrangler. But if you're looking for what I consider to probably be what would be the best for general use and shooting, I'm gonna really go with the Wrangler. Oh, and there's something else I wanted to mention, because it's something that, now let's just go ahead and drop that you're not really gonna notice or think about much until you've shot them both, or shot two different ones like this, which is the sight on the Heritage. Now if you look, the notch here goes all the way back to right above the hammer. And when you look down that, the sight picture isn't bad, but you can kind of lose the front sight. Whereas with the Wrangler, if you can see, let me see if I can get the light over here a little bit, or maybe drop something. There we go. As you can see, it dips down there below the rear sight, and that gives you a really crisp outline of your rear sight. So it makes it really easy to distinguish and see your sights on this, at least in my opinion, and at least for this style of sight. I mean, these are obviously not target sights. Target sights would be easier to see, but for these gutter style sights like this is really a good sight picture. I really like it. Now granted, I could be biased. It is the same on their centerfires, so, and I'm a lot more used to that. But I do really like that, and that's kind of another point for the Wrangler, again, as a shooter. But the quality of the Heritage, let's go ahead and kind of put that there. There we go. But the overall quality of the Heritage is, I would say, on par with the Wrangler. There are a couple things I don't like quite as much about the Heritage, but that's kind of almost nitpicky features rather than actually detrimental to it. So if I were in the market for a single action and I wanted something with a Magnum cylinder and a bit of a variety, probably go with the Heritage. But if I'm looking for the shooter, I'm going with the Ruger Wrangler, that's for sure. So, I mean, however you want to go, whatever route you would want to go, that's up to you. I definitely, unless it's a really good deal, probably would avoid our good friend Chiappa here. And we'll see how this holds up. I mean, we have shot a lot of rounds through this gun. I'm not going to say it has not been shot a lot. As you can tell, it's dirty right now from having been shot. So it does get shot. It's enjoyable to shoot. It's relatively accurate. And in the future, I'd kind of like to do some accuracy testing with these. We'll see how long I can borrow this, or maybe if I can borrow this again for some accuracy testing. So, but as I said, overall, either the Heritage or the Wrangler, good choices. Definitely not the Chiappa. So if you found this video informative, or maybe helped you make your choice, or at least helped you think about something to look at, I'd really appreciate a like. And if you watch some other videos and you enjoyed those too, I'd really appreciate if you subscribe. So have a wonderful day.